order to completely break my mind, they are in the same room together.
Yep.
Welcome to stage 3.
Thank you so much. Yes, thank you.
Yes, welcome to the diversity panel, and as the ACTRA diversity chairs, actually don't have your titles on my little bio here, but as the ACTRA co-chair, is it co-chairs or is it diversity?
Co-chairs.
Okay. Well, diversity is a very complex topic, and it needs people to do it. So, let me just introduce you guys. So Chattrisse Dolabaille, I've actually known Chattrisse for a couple of years, met her through Caribbean Tales. Chattrisse Dolabaille is a writer, a performer, a producer, and a proud Torontonian, giving voice to individuals and communities who have been largely seen as other, the personal and professional priority for her. She and Janet Rose Nguyen?
Yes, Nguyen.
Oh, Nguyen. Okay. So she and Janet Rose Nguyen are the new co-chairs of ACTRA Toronto's Diversity and Inclusion Committee, working alongside the Screen Actors Union to empower storytellers who want our art to reflect real life. Janet Rose Nguyen is life is a joke, and Janet Rose has learned to laugh along with it. An award-winning actress and writer, her work explores horror, feminism, queerness, and the Asian diaspora. Janet Rose is an alumnus of the Real World Emerging 20 program and serves on the bursary committee of Firefly Creative Writing. She is completing her and creative writing degree at York University. She's had roles on indie productions, CBC's Working Moms, and Amazon's The Boys. Oh, okay. I'll have to go and look again. Janet Rose is overjoyed. I love that show. Janet, overjoyed to co-chair the Diversity and Inclusion Committee with the amazing Chattrisse Dolabaille and work to create a more diverse and inclusive world on and off screen. Thank you guys for being here. Shall I now go on to show the video, or do you have anything you want to say?
We'll just show the video, which is from the previous co-chairs. It's one of the initiatives from ACTRA Diversity and Inclusion to create scenes written by and for people of color or diverse performers that give them the leading role.
Okay, and just put your mics on mute while this plays, and it's going to play right about now.
What do we want?
Food.
When do we want it?
Now.
And what are we having?
I'm fired.
No.
I knew it.
No, Glenn, you were not fired.
I'm a huge fan of your work. I read the entire Dark Forest collection. Elena basically got me through high school.
Now, close the door behind you.
What are you suggesting?
I'm simply reminding you.
I don't need to be reminded.
I know who you're after, a young girl, barely 25. You think she did this?
We have eyewitness reports identifying a young woman leaving the scene.
The girl is innocent.
That's not what happened.
Really? 'Cause for months, I helped you with your pitches, did your research, edited your creative reports.
And I'm forever grateful.
Who do you think you are?
That's a question I can't answer. I am a nurse.
Okay, so here we are. So I guess you guys, that was created by the previous co-chairs, but you guys are inheriting this. Still going. What do you think are some of the best things that have come out of it?
I think for one thing, and for some people this seems like such a small point, but it's such a starting point, is it keeps the conversation going past those kind of momentary flashes of public awareness or public anger or whatever it is. I feel, and many people feel this way, that June of last year, some people saw it as this big awakening where people were going to wake up to anti-Black racism in North America and around the world. And for many more people, it was, I don't know if this is an awakening as much as like a test. Like, will there actually be shifts in attitude, shifts in policy, changes in policing, all of these sorts of things going forward? Or is it just one more in a long line of, hey, be angry about this thing, now pay attention to this thing instead, that, you know, is sort of the news cycle that we live in. So this first installment of the demo reels is focusing on bringing Black performers to the forefront. There are going to be other installments that we'll have the privilege of working on that are focusing on different groups of underrepresented performers and underrepresented writers. But the fact that it's going to continue rolling out keeps those conversations going, keeps people asking, are we doing enough to bring diversity and inclusion onto our screens? Or is it something that we've already forgotten about and moved on to the next, headline of the day?
Oh yes, the performative actions, because from the time had the George Floyd situation break out, and everyone was saying how sorry they were, and they didn't realize the people were reaching out and companies were making steps, but in a lot of cases it felt so performative that doing just so that they could look good, that they could say, look, we did our part, and just move on and expect us all to move on without realizing the trauma that we had to go through. And that's even carried over now through COVID, where they're still targeting minorities, but they're now targeting the Asian minorities and carrying that trauma on. So we have this situation where you have the performative actions not translating, and I think your work on this program will take the actors out into the foreground.
I think it's also important to note too, like the reason with the demo reel initiative is it's because as performers of color and diverse performers, neurodiverse, all of that, often when we go out for roles, they're very minor or they can be stereotypical. Like I've been asked in my early career to do accents, or as a woman, it's like pretty much when you're first starting out going for indie roles, a lot of them are about like being in your bikini, and then if not, you're also stereotyped into whatever race or whatever you present as. And with the demo reel initiative, it was really important to Samora and Lisa Michelle to create roles where it's like, oh, we can see ourselves as the lead. So often we watch TV and it's like, oh, here's all these white people and there's all their best friends or their supporting characters. So that's what the demo reel initiative was, really to get that out there and show that actually there are people are interested in watching diverse characters and diverse shows. And then having that, and then also it gives back to the actors because it's like, okay, here's some work that we can show that we're great performers. So, yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry. I just had my little girl come in asking for the iPad, of course. Yeah, she chose the wrong moments. Okay. This is always a challenge as a performer, because you're right. You pointed out that most of the roles are given to as thug number one or girl in bikini or as some other nameless character, and the actors really haven't had a chance to really showcase their work. So I know from the trailer we're showing little short clips, but can you talk a little bit more about the length of the clips that they have and how people can watch it and see that the actors have more to offer?
Yes. So if you go to the ACTRA Diversity YouTube channel, there will be the access to the clips. So these aren't like full short films or anything, but they're full scenes that that actors can use, because it's a demo reel initiative. Because we are an acting union, it's a lot of focus on, getting material for the actors. So we would love to be, a filmmakers union and make actual full movies, but we are still performers. So the goal is to get scenes for these performers to show their chops.
We're not a production company yet.
Yeah.
Well, I know. I know a lot of ACTRA actors, and a lot of actors have really been using web series as a way to bolster their work, and it's actually been a nice kind of a partnership here and there where they can get shot and actually get on screen. In some cases, they shoot one week and boom, it's up on the screen the next week. What are your experiences of this?
In terms of the both of us are not just actors, we're also writers. So there's often, when you only do one thing, any sense of pigeonholing that you're feeling can be made worse. And that's part of the reason why so many of us will develop additional skills. So to have an additional genre available that technically doesn't have to cost anything, although let's be real, you're not going to, you know, shoot a web series for zero money. But a lot of those barriers to entry are just reduced. You don't have to have a huge budget, and you don't have to have a full truck of gear, and you don't have to have a massive cast. And it could be the first thing that you and your best friend tried writing and putting on the screen. So the option to have a web series as a way to either develop some of those skills or to really push more into the industry has changed the game for tons and tons of people. Like when any new technology comes along, there's going to be someone who finds a way to, for lack of a better word, democratize it. And now you aren't just sitting there waiting for some big film studio to give you like a chance on the screen. You can actually go out and make something happen yourself.
Yeah. And like, oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead, please.
Oh, yeah. And our experiences in that is, it's like, you know, you can create a great idea and pitch it out, but if the powers that be don't give you access, then how can you make it, right? But now with YouTube, with web series, it's like, actually people want to watch web series about, you know, a gay Asian girl, or people actually are interested in watching gay vampires, you know, things that like traditional, you know, legacy media will be like, no one wants to watch that. But now it's like, oh, actually, if you go on the internet and have web series, there's an audience, and people want to see the creativity. People want to see the diversity. People want to include all these stories. And yeah, it's like with my experience with web series, I've gotten great roles that I wouldn't have been seen for in like a traditional sense, you know, and they're willing to take a risk on newer actors when you're not so established. So that's great too.
Okay, awesome. What can you say would be one of the biggest challenges for diverse actors? Okay, let me rephrase that. Let's see. What can you say about diversity in media and the importance of it? Because you'll find that there's some series and some productions that are really creator driven. The creator is usually the writer, director, producer, and they usually are doing a reflection of their world, and it can be limited sometimes without realizing that they need to have diversity of characters and diversity of opinion. Characters aren't sounding like of themselves.
Yes. I feel like we could answer this for the whole rest of the panel, because
okay, let's go.
No, I couldn't have thought of a better question to answer. To start, and then I'll throw it over to you.
Yeah, no, go ahead, please.
There's so much to add to this, but so diversity, and Janet Rose did point this out earlier, but people skim over it all the time. So let's say it plainly again for the record. Diversity means more than simply BIPOC people showing up on screen, or showing up in the writer's room, or being the ones to wield the camera and all that sort of thing. Diversity covers anyone who has traditionally been left out, right? So we're talking about folks who have visible or invisible disabilities. We're talking about folks who are neurodiverse. We're talking about folks who, if you picture the standard in whatever that means to you, we've grown up in a world where for many of us that does lead to sort of one very cookie cutter image, like you were pointing out. So non-standard, like if whatever, I don't even want to like spit words, because the point hopefully is that,
get my cat, I'm so sorry.
It's okay. The cat wants to be part of the interview too. So diversity to us, certainly to the Diversity and Inclusion Committee, has to mean a lot more than just, you know, tossing one or two people into a production who don't look like other people in the production. So it's huge because, as you pointed out as well a moment ago, you can't really write anything that you don't know super well. Eventually, yes, but we start off writing what we know, producing what we know, greenlighting films that are what we know because it's familiar and it's safe, and we work in a very risk-averse industry. We're creative people, but the industry is, I don't know, that's going to suck. Will people watch that? I don't know if I'm going to, right? There's a lot of that. So since you
use the word safe.
Safe. Yeah. Now I wish I hadn't used that word, but you know exactly what I mean by it. Non-risk taking. And so since we like what we know and what we know is familiar and what's familiar is comfortable to us, media is so important because for a lot of people, that's how you first get to know, oh, what I know is only one way of living life. The school I go to is only one way that high schools look, for example. The family that I'm in is only one way. So it's both, the media has to do a better job of bringing diverse experiences to the screen, or else we're all only going to be stuck in what we know. And what we know, if what we know isn't being adequately represented on screens, we have even more of a job to try and get it out there in that way.
Yeah.
Over to you.
Oh,
I talked for longer than I was planning to because of the cat.
Sorry about that. He's being all like wants attention now. No, I was like ready for you to keep going. I would just say, yeah, like to Chatrisse's point about diversity inclusion, like with the ACTRA Diversity Inclusion Committee, yeah, I want to reiterate, it's not just, and I don't want to say not just about BIPOC, because it is like BIPOC is so important, but we're also covering people living with disabilities and neurodiverse, like all of that. So it's also fighting for that inclusion and also accurate representation, and how important it is, because what you made me think of is like growing up watching TV, and it's like so much of media, especially because when we grew up, the internet isn't the way it is now, but so much of media is like reflected. It's supposed to be a reflection of life. And growing up, the reflection to me was white people and like, you know, nuclear families. And whenever I would see, like when I first saw Bring It On, for example, there was one Asian girl, and I was like, oh my God, there's an Asian girl. And I was so excited. But like, and that's why it's important, because when she, like, that's not even a great, you know, character to look up to, but just seeing myself reflected is so empowering. And I think that's why it's so important for people now, and young kids and young folks, is like, or even old people, like, it's like seeing yourself reflected back. It's so empowering. And it's like, wow, things are changing. You know, it's like the first interracial kiss on Star Trek, like that was empowering. And it's like, we're still fighting to get that. Like, there's just like the first major blockbuster movie with an all Asian cast, for example, like 2 years ago. And it's like, there's now the first Asian superhero, but like, it's still, you know, we're still fighting for that. And like, these are big tentpole things. And, but you know, as indie filmmakers or for web series, it's like, it's still so important. And that's why people go to that, is to see that reflection and feel safe. But yeah. I hope that made sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's like that grand old internet question and discussion. If Friends were shot today, would it still be an all white cast?
Yeah.
Can I give you a really controversial, not really controversial, but can I give you my preferred answer to questions about Friends?
Okay, go for it.
Why is the conversation so much about Friends, and so often the predecessor of Living Single is completely left out of the conversation at all, right?
Thank you. Because Living Single was there first. It was Friends.
The blueprint.
Oh.
Yeah.
And it couldn't have been like more carefully copied and then repurposed and then sold as something which is still earning people money today. Friends still airs all over the world today. I don't remember the last time I saw an episode of Living Single. So that there.
Probably in the Caribbean.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not a Friends watcher. So I've watched maybe one episode.
I don't blame you.
Yeah. And I don't know about Living Single. So this is good. I'm learning, and I would check it out. I mean, are we really surprised that they stole something, or not stole, but, you know, repurposed and made it white, and now it's huge. I mean, that's just history, right?
Yeah.
So the colonial way. Yeah.
It does bring us to an interesting point about how people view diversity as a bad word or a dirty word. And when they think diversity, they're like, oh, let's just throw in a couple of Black people here and there, and without any thought of the cultural that comes with it. I was having a discussion recently with a writer, it was a Wattpad writer, and she was talking about doing like a dual POV. There's this thing where they write from the first person, and she's writing from the POV of a young white girl, in like 19 or so, and she wants to do a dual POV of the black boy in the story, who was in college and doing basketball and stuff, and she was just trying to figure out, is this something she should do as a young white woman? Should she go ahead and do it from his POV at all, since she didn't really understand where he was coming from? And this was the time I actually had to break it down to her that there's more than just being black. There's no one singular black experience, and even if you were to do that, you have to understand the whole culture of and I think this goes across for pretty much all people of color, is that there's the culture that they're raised in, their parents' culture, and the whole family culture, and how that is how that affects them, plus the whole cultural surroundings. Like, if they're poor, for instance, they're going to have a different background. If they are upper middle class or middle class, whatever, they're going to be surrounded by different people and have different expectations. And then it depends on what their parents experienced and what they're pushing for. So they have all of these different forces coming at them. And in order to understand a character, you actually have to have a kind of a lived experience, someone who can talk to you about this.
And I think as a writer, if someone is asking themselves, I don't understand this character, so should I write for them? No. Like, that's a really basic. Nope.
That's an easy answer.
It's like, if you have to ask, like, am I being racist? If you have to ask, do you have to ask?
Yes.
Same thing.
Yeah. So I do love the idea behind that. I think it's a super creative idea to have the dual POVs. All of that I'm completely with. Where for me, the nuance has to be brought into the conversation is why in so much of media, be it web series, movies, films, whatever it is, why is so many times the white character, given all those layers and complexities that you just talked about, how they grew up and who they grew up with and what their outlook on life is, and whether they went to college, and why do we expect all those nuances in white characters, often lead characters, and why are we surprised when we're given those same nuances and layers and complexities in a character who is not white, as though like black guy is a description of a personality, right?
Yep. That's the hard part. Or Asian girl. This is not simple, especially Asian girl in Toronto. Where's her family from?
Yeah.
What are all those cults? What
yeah.
Is one of her, is like could one of her family be from mainland China, and her dad be from Hong Kong, and they have different, while they have the love of each other, they have different a different background that they're trying to put on the daughter now, and different expectations. So and it's just something as simple.
And I'm Vietnamese too, so like it's like also there's like, what if she's Thai, what if she's Tibetan, like there's so many layers to that. And I think it comes down to lived experience and knowing what you're writing. But then also we get into the territory where it's like, okay, but what about the powers that be that want to be more inclusive? How do they, because let's be real, like the people who are making the big bucks and writing the things, or even just creative white allies, or, whoever, we still want the diversity. But so it's like, we don't want to give them the right to write about us, but it's also, you should include us, So if you want to have a diversity inclusion, bring us to the table. If you want to write a black character, black POV, maybe like I guess this writer was talking to you about it. Maybe she doesn't have the right to write from the POV of that, but I'm glad she was trying to do diversity, right? So there's there's such a conversation to be had where it's like in film, it's different because you can write the characters, but it like a POV of I don't know. That's like a whole other thing. I don't know. But
yeah, it is. It gets really, really tricky with film. You can just look at the different characters, and this is kind of the homework the actors have to do to try to bring nuance to the role. But at the same time, at the same time, you just don't go past a black guy from Scarborough who grew up in Toronto, surrounded by white people, and expect him to do a Jamaican accent.
Yeah,
exactly.
And that comes to educating yourself about, and I don't mean you as in yourself, but educating oneself about like, why am I casting this? Or like, why am I thinking that if this person's black, they need a Jamaican accent? You know, like why, like, or like maybe, or what do I want out of that? You know? So if people who are thinking of writing about diverse characters, it's like, you got to think, what does diversity mean to you? Does that mean a stereotype? Or do you actually want to have diversity and bring us to the table and create something together? Because I think that's important to,
because there's a big difference between actual inclusion and tokenism. And saying, okay, we've got one here, so you're good now, right? Cool. We'll just continue telling the story the way we were going to. I do want to quickly acknowledge Samantha in the chat, because I agree, Girlfriends was a better show than Friends. And thank you. I'm glad that you had a great experience with working the scene in color. We can take no credit for that, but Jessica and Lou, who came up with working the scene and then joined forces with the Diversity and Inclusion Committee, that's absolutely something that we're going to continue on with. I've had some awesome experiences with them as well, and it's one of the things I'm really excited to be able to keep bringing to people. So please stay tuned, and we hope to see you at one soon.
Yes, and just so for listeners and viewers, what Samantha brought up is Working the Scene in Color is an ACTRA Diversity Inclusion Initiative, where we take scripts written by diverse writers, and then we cast diverse performers, and we do a table reading. So it's a great way to get involved as a performer if you're an ACTRA member, and then also a great way to get your work read out loud. So if you're interested, make sure to check it out. And we should have one coming up soon in the fall.
Yep.
Great. I had another point. Is there more that about just working in the industry and what can really change to help the whole diversity conversation, and for it not to be such a dirty word, as I'll bring up again?
I think for me, immediately is just like, I think a lot of like old white people need to retire. Like get out of the positions of like the people, like
gatekeepers have been
the
there
gatekeepers
for a while.
Yeah,
it's been a while,
because we're having great conversations, and all the new people who are coming up, independent filmmakers, there's a lot of people who are down, like we are down, you know, but when you get to like the highest level, if that person is going to sit there and be like, no, the person signing the checks, it's like that's the biggest thing, and them get educated. Yeah,
it's funny you should say that, because you're right. We are having those conversations. A lot of the up and coming filmmakers, they are aware of a lot of these issues because they aren't sheltered from the real world. If it is one thing that I can say about filmmaking, is that it takes you into different communities and different neighborhoods that you would not have visited, especially independent production. You would never have visited on your own, even as a tourist, because it will just take you into a little pocket, and if you just look around, you can see the different lives of different people, and I think the filmmakers are going through that because they have to start independent, and then move on to studio work and stuff. So they have this experience of the diversity. It is right there in their faces. But I guess as you go a little bit higher up, things do change.
And I guess one thing I don't mind adding into this, while we are creators, we're also still audience members. The thing that changes the minds of gatekeepers is and has always been dollars and cents. So for example, the fact that Black Panther made $1 gajillion means that other gatekeepers who in the past would have been hesitant about greenlighting certain atypical or out of the ordinary productions can be shown, look, here on paper or in a spreadsheet probably, because really, here is the return on the investment.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not as big of a scary risk as you think to put more of a focus on diversity. Diversity needs to be seen, instead of being seen as something that you should do because it's good, but it's going to hurt your bottom line. People need to realize that diversity is going to broaden your viewership. And for that to work, we, when we're in audience member mode, also need to make sure that we go and patronize and support and watch and talk about productions that have taken a chance on diversity.
Yeah.
Right? Whether they've done it intentionally or not.
Like voting with your dollar, basically.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%.
The thing I don't understand is that why don't they understand that it gets out to a wider audience, a much wider audience, if you have right people in the right roles and more diverse characters, a more diverse cast. It can now go to South America and actually perform better. Can perform wherever, instead of just us accepting the default, which is white guy comes in and saves the day.
Yeah.
I think that's a deeper question of like society and white supremacy. Like it's deeply rooted, like, because the sad thing is these shows go out and the thing is, like, white has been the normal for so long. So you can still take Friends and send it to Brazil and people will watch it because like white is the default, you know? And it's like until, and then the people in power that see that will, for them, their reality isn't what ours is. So for them, they're like, this is fine, you know? So it's about opening up that conversation with those people, but also having them realize it's like getting the scope outside, having an outside scope, but some of those people don't see that. So that's, I don't know, the question why is so big, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard to say why they don't see that, but I think they're starting to with, yeah, but yeah.
Okay, there was a point. Oh my gosh, I forgot it. It was a good one too. What is next for you guys? Are you seeing more diverse roles coming your way, at least or at least even being talked about through ACTRA? What are you seeing?
Well, I can only speak to my personal experience. Like, we have just come on as co-chair, ACTRA co-chair. So this is like our first month. We're getting oriented and we're going to get, so we can't really speak too strongly on that. But I can say personally, I have had more auditions that are seeking diverse actors and they look for specifically Southeast Asian. And like I've had one of my first auditions for a lead in a movie role, which is like, actually I kind of, when I did the audition, I was like, oh, this is cool. And then I sat down later and I was like, oh my God, that's something to celebrate. Like I was actually being considered for the lead and they had sent the script and I read the script and I was like, wait, this is like a romantic movie and I would be the romantic lead. Like I was like, and then I was like, that's a huge celebration. Like I would never have thought that I would be auditioning for that, you know, before, like 5 years ago. And now I'm like, oh, that's a reality. Like, so it's coming out there. And it was cool too, because it was an Asian female director and writer who, and I was just like, and it was written for an Asian lead. Yeah. And I was like, okay, so then things are happening where it's like, this is taking off kind of, you know? And I've had other roles where it's been like, there's just more coming out that is looking for that. So, and I do see a lot of
casting.
Sorry?
It wasn't just a bit of stunt casting.
Yes. Yeah. And I've also seen more roles looking for non-binary people and trans actors. So it's good and it's starting, but it's kind of optimistic. I'm kind of optimistic.
Is that it's starting and hopefully that it will continue.
Yes.
Yes.
I don't know if we can go backwards from this. I actually, I just remembered what the last 4 years of the presidency was. So I'm just sadly, never mind.
Sadly, we can always go backwards. But I agree. I think cautious optimism is the mood right now. I was watching a series on Netflix recently where it struck me that by no means was this a main character, so I don't want to blow this out of proportion and make it seem like a huge victory. But it struck me that the main character's love interest brings her home, introduces her to his whole family, and his younger sister has Down syndrome. And at no point, I mean, you wouldn't be as surprised to be watching a series where the actor has Down syndrome because it's a plot point, right? Like because someone has to learn a lesson about how to treat people, something. This was none of that. This just happened to be a member of this family that is going to grow in importance to the main character has Down syndrome. Just like, done. We don't need to discuss it and make a big thing out of it. And I think that is it's like a less insulting version of inclusivity for people with visible disabilities than previous examples might have been. I don't know. So I don't want to blow this out of proportion. I don't know whether the casting breakdown specifically wanted someone who has Down syndrome or whether this actor's agent was like, you're going for it. And then you're going to nail it because you're going to beat everyone else who went for the part. I might never know that. But I do think part of the sign of progress is that it's not, I was walking down the street and I saw a Black woman. It's, let me tell you what happened when I was walking down the street and I saw this woman, and the fact that the woman was Black, unless it has to do with the story I am telling, doesn't necessarily need to be said. Yeah. Right? That you're just allowed to be instead of always being a representative for your entire ethnic group. Yeah. Because that's a lot of pressure and it gets very tiring.
Setup. You start the story and you say, well, I was walking down the street and I saw this Black woman, and then it's painting a whole perception of what the encounter is going to be before you even get to the story. So for people who see it as negative, they're saying, oh, okay, this is going to be a story. We're going to see this girl acting out in the story. Instead of
first. Oh my God, where are you going?
Yeah, exactly. So, this is going to get juicy. Instead of like, I was walking down the street and I saw this woman, and she was feeding a kitten, and it was just the sweetest thing. Oh, and she was Black. Yeah.
And then that makes you think of your unconscious biases, and even like, for me, this reminds me of, I was watching a movie where there was an Asian girl young Asian girl character, and then there's another Asian character in the movie. And my own unconscious bias is like, oh, is that the father? But it's like, no, these people, actually, no, you can just cast two Asian people in a movie and they can be unrelated. Like
they just happen to both be Asian.
That's how often it is in movies. Like this is a Hollywood movie too. So I was like, wow, I have unconscious bias where like they're related. But it was like, no, you can just cast two Asian people and they can just be two Asian people, like in real life. We're not all related, by the way.
In case anyone was still unclear.
Yeah. But yeah, like, and seeing things like that makes you realize, even as diverse performers and diverse people, is like, wow, I have a lot of unconscious bias, or like society has really put a lot of supremacist ideals in my brain that I didn't even know. And then until we see it on screen or read about it in diverse stories and whatnot, that's when we are like, oh, I was like that bias was there and now I can remove it. Because it's like, wow, seeing it makes you realize you had it. So yeah.
Yes.
I
was examining my own unconscious biases as well, because there's always going to be some kind of bias stated somewhere, and I think the big difference with people of color is that we recognize what those biases are and how people see us. So when we are creating, we're actually trying to form a much more complex picture for our characters and for our creations, so that it's much more nuanced, and I don't think it's something that can just be you can acquire that, but a lot of productions are finally seeing the value of that and are trying to incorporate. I know right now there are a lot of I'm saying the word a lot right now, but there are a few initiatives that the Ontario government has taken on in order to recognize people of color, especially black creators and black female creators, to give them more opportunities to get out there. So hopefully the whole media landscape will be changing as we see more people of color take on roles in directing, and we also see more crew members who are people of color as well.
I think also with that, it's like, as diverse, creators, it's also important to, like, once you get there, don't just hire white people. Like, extend the, like, and it's unfortunate that we have to be like, oh no, you got to help well, no, it's not unfortunate. Like, you should be helping and paving the way for the people, like, behind you, but also, like, once you get there, don't stop advocating. And like I go on sets and sometimes, and I'm like, it would be really beneficial to have like a female sound person, because you're like going up in there and stuff like that, or a non-binary sound person where you can feel safe, especially if like you're a younger female actor and whatnot, or, just having, this is a big discussion at ACTRA, having makeup artists who know how to do black makeup or different skin tone and hair, because it's like, it's true, like, and that's where it's little things where you're like, oh yeah, why is it the default is white and they don't know how to do your makeup, like, so it's little things like that. When you get to positions, like key creative positions, don't just hire white creators or typical male ones. Like, make sure that there's a good group that can also support everybody else.
I think a lot of that that those hiring practices come from the fact that a lot of I think white people have no idea what it's like to be the only one in the room.
Yeah.
Whereas we have that a lot. You can go to a party, you can go to a set, and you realize that, wait a minute. Yep, that's it. I'm the only black person here. Oh, hey, it's somebody else. Hi.
The freedom to just be yourself without worrying that something that you're saying or doing is going to like fuel entire generations of bias is something that when you feel it for the first time, it's awesome. I remember, I think I was a teenager. I was in New York City. I want to say I was in part of Brooklyn, but I don't remember the neighborhood. So we're going to gloss over that detail.
Yeah, you were probably in Brooklyn.
I really miss you, Brooklyn. Hi. I was walking down the street and I thought, wait, everybody within like my sight lines in all directions is some version of a BIPOC person. Obviously, we weren't using the BIPOC term when I was a teenager, but like it was, oh, if someone looks at me, like if someone does a double take and looks at me, it's either because they think I look pretty or because they like the jacket I just bought on Flatbush Avenue, or because like it's something that has to do with me as an individual rather than oh, look, there's one of those over there. Or, oh, is she not from around here? Like I went to predominantly white schools. I grew up for the most part just north of the city in Thornhill. I had never been able to disappear into a crowd ever in my life. And the feeling of being able to do that if I wanted to was tremendously freeing. So I can only imagine how different certain things would be in my life, my adolescence, my career, if I were used to that feeling as opposed to trying it out for the first time when I was like close to 20.
Yeah. I get that 100%. Like growing up in Alberta, like I get that feeling when I I live in Toronto now, and I'm like, I look around and I'm on this. I remember when I first moved here, I was on the subway and I looked and I was like, yo, not like, there's like one white person on this subway. And then it was like everybody else. And I was like, okay, this is really cool. Like, cause in Alberta, it's like, well, in Edmonton, where I'm from, it was like predominantly white. And I went to Catholic schools and I was like, yeah, the only Asian in most of the time.
Yeah.
So it's really empowering to see and feel that. And it's, and going into communities with that. And like, to your point, if we grow up with that, our existence is completely shaped differently. Like instead of feeling ashamed of who I am or my culture, my heritage, I'm like, oh no, that's just part of who I am. And like that in my early 20s, I'm not aging myself though. I can still audition for early 20s, but it was such a major growing point of being like, why am I ashamed of being Asian? Why am I ashamed of like, why do I have to be the only Asian in the group? Or why am I pretty for an Asian? Like, I'm a proud Vietnamese woman. Like, it's like, but it's growing up in predominantly white culture. It's like, oh, I had to let go of that shame. And now it's like, okay, now I can reach out and be part of the community and like create that. But like, it was a big growing point of being like, oh my gosh, why am I ashamed? Yeah.
Well, it's funny because I grew up in Barbados, so pretty much surrounded by Black people. And when I came to North America, first to US and then to Canada, it was like I had to go and learn how to be Black all over again, because some of the way that you walk and the way that you occupy space, it can be threatening to some people, or make people do that double take. It's like, what's he doing here? Why is he acting like he belongs? Yeah. And it was just learning how to exist in those spaces that I had every right to be in. And the thing is that that's also another part of the whole understanding what diversity is, because we have these different experiences, and did you hear the horns in the background? Okay.
Very faintly. Your app is working great.
Oh, perfect. Nice. So just learning to existing in different spaces again was an eye opening, and a big eye opener, and it still is something that I have to think of today, which is something that a lot of people really don't realize. That when you enter into some of the spaces, especially here not especially in Toronto, but here in Toronto, you're working with different crews and different organizations, and this is something that you have to carry with you.
Yeah, I actually for a long time was very proud of how great I was/am at code switching, so that whatever environment you put me into, I would figure out a way to, if not blend in, because that wasn't always physically possible, then stand out for all the right reasons. Switching language, switching physical appearance, just a lot of different bending myself for a situation or for a group of people or for another person. It's only very recently that I've started to think, how sad that I thought this thing that I did was like a talent. Like, it is a skill, but in the way that, I don't know, cleaning like bird poo off your car is a skill too, but that doesn't mean it's like, oh, good, I've met someone who's great at this. Like, it's like, oh, well, I wish you hadn't had to do that. I wish you hadn't done it so often that you got this good at it. As an actor, I'm grateful, because what is acting if not code switching at a certain level? But yeah, I hope that 20 years from now, when someone watches an archive of this interview, they're thinking, really? This guy had to like walk differently and carry himself differently? Like,
oh, no, not that I actually had to, but not that I actually did, but it was always there in the back of my head. Should I be walking?
Got the impression that just being himself wasn't okay.
The fact that you have to question that is just like, and it's like, when I was younger, I'd be like, oh, I'm so proud for being so, or no, what they call it, a banana. Like, oh, yellow on the outside, white on the inside. And it's like, that was a proud thing. And now it's like, ew, like, no, I shouldn't, like, no. And I just hope for my brother, my sister, who are like teenagers and younger. And then my, and just future generations is like, they don't have to think that, like, oh, you're a banana or an Oreo, like, I like hope that doesn't exist. And like, if anyone says that now, it's like, that's gross.
Agreed.
So.
Okay, well, we are coming. Oh, it's 2:24. Okay, we're coming to the end of the panel. So, any last thoughts that you like to impart, or any bits of wisdom that you can impart on actors and any producers who are watching us?
Well, thank you for listening. First off,
absolutely,
and I think just like believe in yourself and keep going. As cheesy as it is, like, you're gonna get so many no's. That's like, it's just, but don't take those no's. Like, believe in what you have and what you want to say and what you want to do, and screw the no's, the no's, and just keep going. Like, and what we have as diverse people, it's important and it's good and it's right, and we should share that.
Yeah, agreed. And then to to, I guess, specifically address people who are in that space of wanting to try something and not knowing where to go or how to start or how will I be able to afford it. As tough as it might feel for you right now, because I don't want to minimize that it's difficult at the early stages of your career, as tough as it might be right now, I promise that there are resources out there. There are people, like-minded people. There are groups and organizations that want to help you. Although I cannot answer any question you may have at the beginning of the process, I can say that ACTRA, the Screen Union for Actors here in Canada, is so willing to work with producers at all budget levels and all levels of experience. And if you feel that there is some kind of barrier to you being able to make your work and use professional actors, please don't feel that way. And if you feel like, well, I don't know if they've got, enough people who look way X or exhibit specific thing over here, don't let all the reasons that something is difficult stop you from trying anything. Find the potential openings and go for those. And that very much includes surrounding yourself with, or at least linking up with once in a while, someone who's got a similar goal and might be able to provide a solution. I think one thing I wish someone had told me earlier on is that you just have to keep looking for solutions. And if you don't have the solutions, you have to keep looking for people who have the solutions. And anything you want to do, you can do if you do those two things enough times. So that would be my sort of closing words.
Especially in film, it's like, there is a solution. You just got to find it or find someone who has it.
Yes.
And just, you reminded me, for ACTRA, we do have a diversity. If you go on the website, there's a diversity portal. So if you're looking for a professional actor that suits some kind of diverse, I hate it, checkbox.
I know.
I don't know what the better term is, but there is a portal for that. And then, to reiterate, there's lots of different levels of budgets, and we would love to be part of your work.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for giving us your time and your voices and your very unique perspectives on diversity in media, especially here in Toronto, and of course the ACTRA program and support for diversity. This whole recording will be available on YouTube for anyone, so please feel free to check it out next week. Once again, thank you, Chattrisse and Janet. And was it Janet Rose?
Janet Rose, yes.
Okay. See, that's a very important thing with diverse people. Always ask and respect the pronunciation of their names.
Oh God, we can go into that in a huge.
Well, we have another hour.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much.